So today's customers expect a seamless customer experience. Yes, see, I did use a no-no word, but it's within the context of introducing the session. According to PwC, 17% of customers abandon a brand after just one negative experience. So with all of this technology innovation coming to market, you might wonder, what is a good e-commerce experience? What is the bar that a retailer needs to exceed today? So the panelists that we have today are going to answer that exact question. We have Samir Desai. He's the EVP, Chief Digital and Technology Officer at Abercrombie and Fitch. Anisa Kumar, who's the CCO at Narvar. Kacey Sharrett, VP of Direct to Consumer at GoPro. Jenna Flateman Posner, CDO at Snipes, and it's moderated by Wigder, Chief Content Officer at Insider Intelligence. Please join me in giving our panel a warm welcome.
So as Veronica said, she has used one of our taboo words. And the reason it's taboo is the question we're going to start off with here in the session is to complete this sentence. And that sentence is, a great e-commerce experience is. And our taboo words are seamless, customer, brand, authentic, and personal. So without using any of those words, a great e-commerce experience is, Samir.
So to me, a great e-commerce experience is brilliant at the basics. So it's a little bit different perspective from all those kind of buzzwords. To me, you got to get the fundamentals and the basics really right. And when somebody comes to your site to shop, don't get in their way. And so, make the shipping options available, the payment options available, the return policy, everything should be clear. At that point, most of the time, they've done their discovery on social media or elsewhere. They come to the PDP, their wallet's open, they want to buy. And so really being crisp and brilliant at the fundamentals and basics, to me, are critical.
All right. Brilliant at the basics. BATB.
Yep.
We're going to remember that. A great e-commerce experience is?
I can go next. I will keep it short, one-word answer.
Perfect.
Frictionless. A great e-commerce experience is frictionless. You make it easy.
Great.
You get through the funnel and you get them out. Another word, if I were to pick.
Yes.
Real time. It's
as long
mobile.
as it's not on the list. Mobile.
It's mobile.
Okay.
It's frictionless and it's mobile.
Okay.
Okay.
Fantastic. Kacey.
I'll go a little bit short as well, maybe not one word, but what I would say is that a good e-commerce experience is one that people tell their friends about. Yeah. And I think it's going to be different for everyone. I know my personal thoughts, but I think it's one that everybody will share with other people.
I'd have to go with ubiquitous, right? We have to be everywhere. We've got to meet our customers where they are, paid, earned, owned, right? We need to be on social. We need to represent stores. We need to be in stores. So I think a good e-commerce experience is everywhere.
Okay, fantastic. And I would add to this mix one that drives a sale. Fair. Perhaps the most basic part of a good e-commerce experience.
Sometimes, but not always.
Sometimes. It doesn't have to be then and there, right? It doesn't have to be then and there. It doesn't have to be them making the purchase. They could be an advocate. They could influence a friend or family member or a contact to ultimately make a purchase. But at the core of it is ultimately driving some sort of a transaction. Yes. All right. So one of the dynamics that we've been talking about in the industry is the fact that in the past you saw e-commerce growing at incredibly high growth rates, much, much higher than you saw for physical retail. And kind of the difference between those two growth rates is much closer than it used to be. So certainly e-commerce is still growing faster than physical retail is, but not quite at that huge level we saw for the better part of a decade, which means that contending for digital budgets could become increasingly challenging. And in today's economic environment, we're facing many different factors that will influence the ability to get dollars for any type of initiative, whether digital or physical. How do you create a great e-commerce experience given more constrained resources? How do you decide what to focus on? Anisa, do you want to kick us off there?
I was going to come at it from a different angle too and say, number one thing you need to do as an e-commerce or omni-channel, I love the word, ubiquitous exec, is make sure you're always fighting for those roadmap dollars, right? Samir, you know this as the CTO, right? So you got to start upfront with those dollars. It's hard, they're harder to get. But you do that by making sure you don't lead with gut, lead with analytics. You're the e-com leader. You've got the numbers. Put the customer at the center of your business cases, have the analytics that show it, and then prioritize with that combination of customer and ROI. Yeah. But you got to fight to get the dollars, right? And there's a time horizon for the payback. Yep. And you will prioritize with all of that in mind.
Right. So have the analytics behind you. That's a good piece of
You've
advice.
got the numbers. You've got more numbers than anyone across most of the other business units, right?
Yep.
I'll add on to that I think you said prioritization. I would say actually ruthless prioritization, but I think it all goes back to knowing exactly who your customer is and who your brand is and what you're trying to accomplish. I've never worked any place where we haven't been fighting for dollars, whether it's on the retail side or on the e-commerce side. So I think it comes down to the prioritization. But I think one of the things which is great, and we've all talked about a lot about AI, I think over the course of the past few days, is that AI has the propensity to help us accelerate and help us to make our teams more efficient. And I think so prioritization comes along with also looking for those opportunities that we have to be more efficient. And I think we're going to have some huge unlocks here in the very, very near future. It's really transformative. And I think that's going to be a place where we can shine. And I'm not sure that everybody like on the retail side is talking about AI in the same way that we are on the e-commerce side. So I think like everybody in this room is probably going to be going back to their organizations and leading on that front. So that's what I'm looking forward to. But yeah, no question, like the dollars are hard to come by.
And I think the big piece of advice there, though, is be ruthless.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be Kacey's takeaway.
I think here's a quick budget hack also for those omnichannel retailers out there. I think one thing we learned through the pandemic was that our access to data became really, really informative, right? When a customer walks into a store and they leave, if there isn't some sort of compelling reason for them to identify themselves, the last time those stores speak to that consumer is the next time they walk in. So we've really proven our value, right? So there is a culture shift and a strategy here, which is utilizing digital to amplify the physical store. And what I found is that if you walk into your prioritization looking through that lens, that what you find is that the tech that you're implementing is actually rising all boats, right? And so you tend to get more buy-in, you get more cross-channel collaboration, and you get access to more cash, which is helpful. Okay.
Yeah, I'd say just building on the kind of prioritization concept for us, one way we brought that to life inside of the company is by introducing and adopting the OKR, Objectives and Key Results framework across the organization. So we started in the tech organization, that was successful, and then now we've brought it into the entire company. And so the prioritization and alignment comes from being really clear on what the objectives and outcomes are so that the work that we're doing with whatever limited resources we have is yielding the same outcomes across all the functions in the company and not one team over here trying to solve for one thing versus the rest of the organization. So that's been a really good framework and kind of vehicle for us to be able to kind of drive more value.
And I actually wanted to ask, what did OKRs replace for you? What were you using before?
Yeah, I think we probably replaced just kind of pet projects and kind of gut intuition and the loudest voice in the conference room, things like that, where people basically demanded what they thought was going to be the biggest benefit to their business line or vertical versus getting kind of company-wide alignment around here. The top, and we as a company have 5 objectives that we've aligned on for the whole company, and then that kind of cascades down. And so, when you're working on something or somebody comes to you with an ask of, hey, I want this feature built, how does it tie back to that KR that we've all aligned to? And if it doesn't, then we probably shouldn't work on it.
Okay, great. Well, we could talk about this one for the entire 30 minutes, but I'm going to pivot us to a different topic, which is going back to that taboo word seamless, which is used incredibly frequently these days, but it means a lot of different things to a lot of different people and organizations. What specifically does it mean to provide a seamless experience for you? Jenna?
Sure. I think it's really just an unencumbered buying experience. When consumers come to our site, you don't really know why they're there, right? We don't know yet. Only 2% on a good day are really identified. So 98% of those consumers are coming to the site. Are they there to browse before a store visit? Are they there to brainstorm? Are they there to get inspired? Are they there to buy? Are they there to buy for themselves or someone else? It's very hard to understand, right? So I think that meeting those customers where they are in their journey and getting them to that next best outcome without friction is a seamless experience.
Anyone disagree with that? Or have a very different interpretation?
No, I would just add on, absolutely. Again, Jenna, back to your original word that you use, single word, what does e-commerce need to be? I think seamless means ubiquitous again, or omni-channel, right? Meet the customer the way they want to shop and the channel they want to shop, right? It could mean everything from a fast site, a reliable site, payment options that make sense, but it could also mean if you're a omni-channel retailer here, right? You've got to make it easy across all your channels. The mobile app, if you have an app, that's a channel, your mWeb, your site, and your stores, right? And the entire purchase funnel has to be made easy and frictionless across all those channels. I will also say in today's world, it also means meeting the consumer the way they want to shop. If that's on social, if that's when they're making their DoorDash order, however it is, right? You need to be paying attention to where that consumer's at.
All right. So that actually tees up our next question pretty well, which is, all of you are e-commerce experience experts here. When you shop from sites that are not your own, what is your biggest pet peeve about the experience? What drives you absolutely nuts? I'm sure that there are many things, but what would be the one thing that you dislike?
I can go first on that one. So for me, I think there's, just on mobile is obviously the platform where I think majority of people are engaging and transacting. I know I do it myself the most there. And so the checkout experience within mobile still, I think, leaves a lot to be desired. And I think there's a lot of progress that's been made, but the most frustrating thing for me is I pick the item that I want to buy, and when I get to the checkout and they're making it too complicated for me to be able to complete that transaction and I abandon, that still I feel like there's opportunity. And for us, I think what we're trying to do is solve a lot of that at Abercrombie through the mobile app versus the mobile website, and really investing a lot in that, because I think the mobile app experience is a lot more rich, and you really kind of overcome a lot of those hurdles where you can know the customer and you can make it more seamless to check out. And I think that's where we'll probably see a lot of retailers continue to invest more and more is shift the traffic from mobile web to native mobile app.
I think wherever they are, intuitive would be the word that I would say that I would appreciate. It's kind of like going to your neighbor's house that you've never been in their kitchen before and you have to throw something away and you know exactly where the garbage is. It's like, yep, I can go and I know instinctively, right, where things are supposed to be. So my pet peeves are that the experience doesn't flow that way, that I can't find things, that the UX isn't designed in such a way that I can navigate it. I also, if I could have like a part two, for me, it's also a lot of fine print and a lot of things that are maybe like a box is pre-checked for me that you have to really look and pay attention. You're like, oh, wait a minute, I almost just did something that I didn't want to do. And so I think that those experiences, those for me take away trust with the brand. And so I think anything that may lead you to just question that they have my best interests as a consumer in mind, so those would be the things that stand out for me.
And are there check boxes for things that you're thinking of beyond just like sign up for promotional emails?
Well, those are definitely the big ones, but I think we're all guilty. They kind of exist in different places where things are pre-selected, and that's an assumption on the brand's part that they know what I want to do, right?
Yep.
So,
biggest pet peeve: don't make me take out my credit card. I don't want to get it. I don't remember the number. There's no space in here for that.
Do you know where your wallet is all the time?
Absolutely not. I mean, my phone. Yeah. I mean, it's you've got Apple Pay, you've got Google Pay. Please implement them.
Yeah.
They don't exist today. It's come on. We're beyond that. I can't stand a checkout process where I'm putting in my address and it's just too much work.
Yeah.
My biggest pet peeve has led to some of my career choices. I'm at Narvar post-purchase because don't take care of me or don't try to market to me with high customer acquisition costs all the time before the purchase, but then ignore me after. I should really be your biggest focus after I purchase. And then I go into a void. You definitely will, to your point, promote to me, send me your sale offers, but you won't tell me where my stuff is. You won't tell me it's delayed. You won't follow up with me. You won't check in on my customer experience. Even when it's terrible, even when I've made 5 calls, don't make me call, send. Take care of me once I purchase.
Yeah.
If I get a second one, it's the password.
The password.
Don't gate me in the app. Make me forget the password. Reset the app passwords. I mean,
I know.
but it's not your fault, Samir. I'm looking at you.
You're sure it's not his fault? All right. Well, a lot of these, it's interesting, have been things that we've been talking about for a long time. Most of these are not brand new things, but rather ones that have been part of the e-commerce experience for a decade or longer. And another topic that we're still talking about is this idea of attribution. It was probably 10, 20 years ago when we first talked about, who's going to get the credit for a digital order? Is it going to be the store in that area? Is it going to be simply the e-commerce team that will get the full dollar amount of that particular purchase? How far along are we? Are we better at doing this today than we were before? Because we still hear a lot about companies that grapple with this issue. And Jenna, I know you have strong feelings about this.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think as digital executives, we're really focused on the bottom line, right? So a lot of us get focused on last click attribution. We want to know what is that last interaction that actually drove the conversion, and let's give all of the credit. Let's disregard everything that took, that it took marketing and it took stores to get that customer to come to the site and engage and ultimately check out. And I think that's a really big hindrance, not just for the obvious reasons, but for the culture that we are looking to build and breed within our own organizations. The dissonance between traditional brand marketing and performance marketing for a long time has been very palpable. And you kind of have two organizations that are sometimes running on parallel paths but aren't necessarily coordinating. And so we've actually flipped that on its head, and we've really focused on measuring first click, really understanding, where are these initial drivers coming from. And it's shifted our ability to really lean into utilizing the unbelievable assets that are being created and often die on a grid or die in a story that we're trying to figure out ways to put back to work. And so we're dealing with DJ Khaled on a roof with a helicopter and a Lamborghini, and those videos are just not driving the total possible value that they could be. And so in looking at first click and getting more aggressive and giving credit to where it is due on the front end of the relationship, it's given us a lot more confidence in utilizing that content and putting it back to work. And so it's, while we might not be, booking Lamborghinis and helicopters, we are informing fits and looks at the intersection of depth and trend. And that's bringing our two formerly disparate teams very close together. And we've seen a lot of growth as a result.
I'll jump in. So preface this by saying that I actually came to e-commerce after 15 years of working in retail and stores and districts and regions. And I think I was the first executive in the country with omnichannel in their title years ago. And so this has been a battle not a battle, maybe that's too strong a word, but a challenge that I have been living and breathing from sale attribution, doing buy online, pick up in store and ship from store and, all kinds of omni capabilities and also on the marketing side. And I think, P&Ls are there to drive businesses and to help you make good decisions and understand your channels and, things like profitability. But the best models that I have seen are ones where, number one, everyone in the organization, but especially the CFO, has a good command on, what the drivers of the business are and what things overlap. I think, multi-touch attribution is great, and we have come a long, long way. But I also believe that there are so many touch points that you can't measure and you can't know. I see a billboard, I talk to someone, like a conversation, people still do that. And I think those are things that are hard to measure. So I think everything that you do in an organization has to be with a line of sight to buoying the entire brand and the brand awareness. But there's not one way to get there, for sure.
Yeah, it definitely feels like, you end up taking 2 steps forward and 1 step back as things keep changing around us. We make some progress, and then, iOS comes with changes and all sorts of privacy regulations come out. And so it's a constant balance. And a lot of the companies on the other side of that wall are trying to help, companies like us get better at measurement. But, for us, it's really kind of focusing on first party data and really a lot of energy and emphasis on how do we capture more of that first party data. And that goes then to the value exchange conversation. And so we're putting a lot of energy around loyalty programs, back to the native mobile app experience. How do we engage customers where we get to know them better, and then that'll ultimately help drive a lot of the attribution for at least that cohort of customers. And that's been a strategy we've been using.
Great. We have just over 10 minutes left, and we have not yet talked about the requisite topic here of generative AI. I expect that pretty much every session here at this point has touched on it, so we're not going to spend a long time on it. We're going to go back to that kind of rapid fire response here, but your take on the biggest use case for retail.
Sure. First off, Scott Galloway said it best. AI is not going to put people out of work. People that don't learn AI are going to be put out of work, right? So I want to preface with all of that. My team has been using generative AI to write copy for our PDPs for roughly 7 months. We got ahead of it really early. It's been unbelievable. We've been doing 2 weeks worth of work in 2 hours. Highly recommend it. There are a lot of really good tools out there. They're integrating with PIM that are actually, massaging models to make sure it's in your voice. And I would say get ahead of it. I mean, our path to go live is a lot faster. And so our product enablement process has been sped up tremendously. And I'm sure you all know when you're a brand of brands and we're selling against Nike and Foot and Finish Line, et cetera, the faster you are live, the faster path to cash you have.
Right. It does seem like product descriptions are sort of the low-hanging fruit in many ways. For
absolutely.
This. Yeah. But if you're not doing it, you're going to be behind the curve pretty darn quickly if you're not already.
Do it. Yeah.
I think web content, absolutely, that would have been, without a doubt, my response as well. I think also, and that's one that we can all easily understand, because that's kind of when you start, messing around with some of the tools, those are the outputs that you start to get. I love it for idea generation. And so, we've been talking about, kind of SEO articles, things that are helping us to, kind of get content out there that, quite frankly, it's just, conversations about, how the voice of the brand needs to come through, and being able to kind of share, information with your consumers. I think that is probably going to evolve, but I mean, we're in such a time of transformation. I mean, we're just barely scratching the surface on, I think, the capabilities that are out there. And I mean, credit to the majority of the vendors. Everybody's been doing something in the space. It hasn't been a talking point until now. So, bless you.
Bless you.
Yeah, I'm going to say, you two both talked about great sales use cases, right? There's probably sales, margin, and then a lot of your SG&A savings, right? So I'm going to focus on maybe the other side of this, which is probably operations. Lowest hanging use case to me, I'm sure a lot of you are already thinking about it. I know a lot of my customers are. The call centers, the contact centers, we're not calling them call centers anymore, but the contact centers and your customer 360, right? With the speed of generative AI sitting on top of some of the basic AI that was already out there with chatbots and such, right? Your productivity with your agents and the ability to solve that customer problem first touch, right? And do this across the board with training that makes newer employees work just as efficiently as people that are more tenured and seasoned. I'm calling out call centers. You can certainly see that use case also in stores, retail, goes up and down in terms of seasonality, but training and customer data at the fastest level you can get it out there, right?
Because you have the opportunity to, gather you can translate every prior call that you took, every piece of content on your site, every piece of content off of your site. And, to be able to have that at those teams' disposals makes them super efficient.
Exactly.
But it's going to go to chat.
Right.
Well.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll take a little bit of a different approach. And where we're seeing some kind of green shoots from this technology is actually in our product design process. So our design team who are designing our physical products have started experimenting a lot with tools like Midjourney and Stable Diffusion to kind of feed it historical images of products that have sold really well, and then use prompts to be able to kind of iterate and refine a new assortment or a new line off of that set of images. And then ultimately that's driving inspiration, that's driving velocity and how quickly they can produce images versus using Illustrator or Photoshop or some of the traditional tools. And obviously, as we know, those tools are also progressing very quickly. But that's giving more options to our merchant teams to be able to respond to and react to. And that whole cycle is starting to kind of become much more efficient and quicker. So I think that's kind of where we're seeing it already. And then I think as I look forward, as this technology starts to kind of tap into things like TikTok and Instagram and all the content that's in those channels, which obviously drives a lot of inspiration for our assortment also, I think being able to pull in all that data into, a creative process is going to be, I think, really massive. And we're not there yet, obviously, but I think we're starting to kind of experiment in that space.
Right. I think it's really interesting. We end up with different use cases here, right? You're talking about product design or contact centers or digital content. What we're finding a lot of the time is that companies sort of identify one or two use cases and go deep there and then kind of have a very thin layer that they're testing. But in terms of using it profoundly across the entire organization, we're not quite at that stage just yet. So I guess kind of pick your one or two areas that you really want to lean into early on. And then after that, figure out how you want to kind of build it more broadly across your organizations. So one other just very quick question on generative AI before we move on, which is how are you teaching your teams how to use it? How are they learning how to write prompts? Are you enrolling them in courses? Is it kind of a test and learn?
I'll speak from my experience. Well, first off, I want to say when you sit on your copywriters and you tell them that they're going to start using generative AI to create copy, it's a little sensitive. I think one thing that was really valuable for us, and this is true, right? The benefit of AI is that you actually get to infuse more of the human element into the parts of the process that really, really matter. And so what's happened with us is that we were really able to activate efficiencies around copy that we need at scale, but it really freed up a lot of our copywriters to write more content that can drive better SEO, tell more of a story, live on blogs, live on category pages. And that's been pretty unbelievable. Our perspective has been mainly test and learn. We've tested everything from copysmith and hypotenuse and citation. I mean, we've just been like trying everything, immersing ourselves in everything, and watching very closely and intently because the landscape is changing every day. Every day there's something new. And so I would really recommend that you give business owners to this discipline, right? Let them really be responsible for reporting back on what's happening and what's next and what's new and how the tests have gone, because this is not a metaverse situation. This is going to change the way that we do business for the rest of our lifetimes, and we need to get ahead of it now. Those that do are going to capitalize big time.
All right. I'm going to pivot us now to a different topic because we've done exactly what we said we wouldn't do, which is to spend a lot of time on generative AI. All right. An unpopular belief that you hold. Again, you're all in these positions where you oversee different types of experiences. Do you think of something very differently than you feel like your colleagues in the industry do? Anisa.
I'm going to say, and I'm sitting next to my colleague from a retail background, to me, one of the big fallacies is that the e-commerce P&L is a negative one, right?
We talked about that. Yeah.
I'm so sorry. Okay, I'll pick another one. I'll flip it.
It's okay, go.
I'll give Jenna this one.
That's okay.
That's what happens when you miss the prep call. Sorry. But influence sales, which comes back to this concept of what you can do now with some of the tracking and what you can do with AI, right? Influenced is an interesting word. I think if you look at some of the surveys from last year, updated for this year, the numbers between 75 and 85% of all sales are influenced by the e-commerce channel, right? So when you take different cuts at that, it tells you a different story, right? I'm sorry, you got to think on your feet now, Jenna.
I'll pivot. I got another one.
Okay.
You want to go with your other one, or you want to just corroborate?
Yeah, sure. So I don't know if this is popular or unpopular, but I am a test case, and I can tell you that this is true. I think there is I think retailers like to hire retailers, and I think that there is a likely unpopular direction that hiring is going, and I've tried to spearhead this. I've been hiring lots and lots of technologists, folks from the retail tech side that look at retail differently, that don't have the historic legacy way of thinking, that are gritty and move fast and can fail. And not that retailers can't do this, but what I will say is that when you're hiring like retail tech startup junkies, like I used to be, it's a different vibe, and it's been really fun. We innovate fast.
So what types of roles are you putting them in?
On the digital side. Yeah. Thank you.
No. But I mean, even within the digital side, like in marketing roles, sales, obviously on the tech side.
Yeah, I mean, it's been everything from innovation and dev to customer service to performance marketing, merchandising. I think everything is met through the lens of efficiency. And there's this is the way I've done it, and so this is the way I'm going to keep doing it. Everything's new, so we get to kind of rethink it all and challenge the norm. And it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'll double down on that point because I'm a firm believer of the same. Where I personally don't have a career in retail myself. I'm 2 years into this role at Abercrombie and my first 2 years in retail. And as we've hired a lot of people at Abercrombie over the last year and a half, majority of them have come from non-retail industries. And I think kind of the norm has been to hire people who have tried and true experience, years and years of retail or e-commerce. And what we're finding is maybe some of the tech, but also like really kind of consumer-focused brands. And so, where's their digital and tech talent in a Starbucks or a Delta or Hilton or Marriott, like brands that really put the customer at the center. And I think that's the mindset that you really need, whether it's in a retail context or something else. It's, to me, kind of less relevant. And we're finding a lot of diverse kind of thought leadership that comes out of a team like that versus somebody who's implemented the same thing, in 5 different places. So that might not be a popular belief, but that's, kind of mine as well.
All right. I think we are almost out of time here, so we may need to wrap up. So Samir, Anisa, Kacey, Jenna, thank you all so much, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you.